Masechta Shabbos.
Mario, you can mute everybody.
Eh?
You can mute everybody.
Okay. I can't. For some reason I can't. Oh yeah, they're all.
And he has the Golden Gate Bridge behind him.
Yeah, I tried to put a background, I can't. I don't know.
Why?
I don't know how.
Has someone reached out to Chaim Teichman
Is he okay?
or Eli Marciano?
Are they okay?
Because
Eli, I wrote today, but he gave me no answer.
Okay. So let's start. We're in Masechta Shabbos, Daf Yud Ches. We learn the Mishnah, which seemed to suggest
Yud Chai. No, 18.
18, Yud Ches Amud Aleph.
Oh, Yud Chai.
The Mishnah seemed to suggest that if you start the Malacha from before Shabbos, Beis Hillel seems to suggest that certain activities can proceed even during Shabbos. That means we're going to see that the machlokas between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel is regarding the concept of shvisas kelim. That is, can your kelim continue to do you have to, for example, we know your animals on Shabbos, you have to have your animals rest on Shabbos. You can't have your animals work, you have to be shvisas behema. But can your kelim do work for you? So that's what the Mishnah that we learned yesterday seemed to discuss. And so the Gemara wants to know, first, first of all, we said that there was machlokas whether you could start the dyeing process, where you would put some dye in water, and even if it couldn't finish, so unless it could finish the process before Shabbos, Beis Shammai prohibited. They still said as long as it started Erev Shabbos, even if it continued into Shabbos, it's permitted. Now, first of all, who is the Tana the Gemara wants to know, who says that all you got to do is put water and dye, and you don't have to mix it together at all, that you're already chayiv achatif? I'm Rav Yosef Rebbe, the Tanya. Let's say one man put some dough in a pot and the other put water. So there is a malacha called lisha. Lisha is kneading dough. Well, you start off making dough by mixing flour and water. So Rebbe says, Rebbe holds that you don't have to do any active mixing. Just the mere placement of water into the flour is enough to violate the malach of lisha. That you need to mix it in order to fulfill the malacha of lisha. So the Gemara wants to say our Mishnah, which said that there's already a problem according to Beis Shammai when you just put the water and you mix it and you don't mix it, you just let the dye, whatever the products are with water mixed together. So you're already high. So the Gemara wants to say that our Mishnah is probably Rebbe. Amalei Rebbe V'dilma come Rabbi Yosi. Maybe Rabbi Yosi, who says by dough that you need to mix it, Ela B'kemach the bar gibul, requires mixing. Aval dio, taking some coloring and putting it in water, that already makes you don't have to mix it. The lav bar gibul, maybe he would also hold emel achayim. Morris is lo sal gedaitich. You can't learn that Rabbi Yossi holds that. The Tanya, echad noises ha'efer v'echad noises ha'mayim achron chayim. If you put ash into a pot and the other person puts the water in, again, Rebbe is consistent. Achron chayim. You don't have to mix it. Rebbe Yossi do oimer ad she'yigavel. And Rabbi Yossi also says there, you're not chayv. And even though afer is not something that requires gibel, it easily mixes with water. So the Gemara would say, would say that our Mishnah can't be Rabbi Yossi. So the Dilma, my Afer offer, the Var Gibel. Maybe the way to end for Rabbi Yossi is to say that when he learned Afer, it really meant dirt. Dirt requires mixing. Vahatanya Afer, Vahatanya offer. Midi Gabi Adoni Tanya, but they didn't learn, these two prices weren't learned by the same people. So we're still, doesn't prove that Rabbi Yossi is could not hold like our Mishnah. Tonorabo. Poitkin Maim Lagina Erev Shabbos Simcha Shecha. Let's say you have an irrigation ditch with water that's blocked by a gate. And by opening up the gate, you start irrigating the garden. And you open it up on Erev Shabbos. So that's not a problem. Even though it continues to irrigate for the rest of Shabbos, that's not a problem. Manichin mukmer. Mukmer is like spices on top of coals. Tachas hakelim, under your clothing, because this would prevent lice from going into clothing. The Erev Shabbos, you can, as long as you started the Erev Shabbos, even though for the rest of Shabbos, these clothing are going to be smoked, you're allowed to do it since you started at Erev Shabbos. You're allowed to put some kind of like pitch under silver goblets. What happens is because the smoke rises and it would sort of blacken the silver, and the artisans would then come later and draw things into the silver. And even though it continues to make this kind of charcoal effect on the glass during Shabbos, on the silver during Shabbos, you can as long as you started at Erev Shabbos, you can do it. You can put a bandage, a wet bandage on an eye, or a cast, or another kind of bandage on a wound Erev Shabbos, even though its effect is going to go throughout Shabbos. Aval. Now, let's say you have a water wheel, and the water wheel is going to turn a grindstone that's going to mill the wheat. So you can't add wheat to this mill, You only can put enough wheat in there so that as long as that amount will be grinded before Shabbos. It means you can't put a massive amount so that this water wheel will continue to grind throughout Shabbos. Now, so why is that? Why did they? By all the other cases they permitted, but by the mill they didn't. Omer Rabbah, really make a din, you could do it as well, because in all these cases we're talking about whether you have a chiyuv shvisas kelim. If your kli is doing work for you, does that make a difference? So really make a din, it doesn't. Here we make a gzeira, says Rabbah, mipnei shemashmas kol. It makes noise, and it's a marasayim. It's a zilzul in covered Shabbos because it makes a noise. Now, this concept of making a noise plays a role in Hilchos Shabbos. So, for example, if the housekeepers that you have want to clean your dishes with a dishwasher, so me'ikar adin, if you don't instruct her, let's say it's easier for her to clean the dishes with a dishwasher. If she decides to do it on her own, technically she'd be able to do it. The problem is a dishwasher makes noise. So because of the noise, we don't allow it. So it's similar to this kind of case. Amalei Rav Yosef. So Rav Yosef says to Rava, why did you have to come up with this reason of Shmias Kol? V'lei mamar mishum shvisas kelim. That a Jew has to keep his kelim from doing work for him on Shabbos. V'chein shaninu b'mechilta. It says, "V'chol asher amarti aleichem tishameru." The Rabbi shvisas kelim. This pasuk seems to include a prohibition that you can't have the kelim do work for you. So why didn't Rabbi use that teretz? Rav Yosef. Really, the prohibition of why you can't grind your wheat, even though you started the Erev Shabbos, because mishum shvisas kelim, because your implements cannot do work for you on Shabbos. So so based on this, you're telling me Beis Hillel holds that you have to rest your kelim even minat Torah. Then how come gofris umugmer? Remember we said that you could put spices on the coals Erev Shabbos, even though they keep on putting smoke on your garments the whole Shabbos. My time is sure. Why is that permitted? Mishum delo ka'avid ma'isa. Because there's no action. The kli is not doing anything. You put some spices on coals, and there's no action by the kli. Remember we said flax we could put into an oven, even though it's nimshechas throughout Shabbos, because the oven's really not doing a maisa. So, but mitzudas chayav dagim. What about the traps that trap animals or fish? Why were we permitted to use those? So hasum nami belechi bekorkri delo kavid maisa. We're talking about a trap. So if you had a trap that closes, like that does a maisa, that would be prohibited. But if you have a trap like just a passive trap where it doesn't do a maisa, that would be like a net. So that would be permitted. However, hashta da amaravishi amaravasi. Man kana shvisas kelim deraisa beis Shammai uvelo beis Hillel. But the maskana of the Gemara seems to be that the only person who holds that shvisas kelim is deraisa is beis Shammai. Beis Hillel does not hold of shvisas kelim. So then the question is, and really, all the other things are permitted because Beis Hillel doesn't hold of shvisas kelim. And the only reason we prohibit regarding the mill, because it makes noise when it grinds, and that's shmias kol, special gzeira. However, if Beis Shammai holds that shvisas kelim is prohibited, Beis Shammai bein kovid ma'isa bein deloi kovid ma'isa us. That Beis Shammai holds that whether the kli does a ma'isa or not, it's prohibited. And the Beis Hillel, avagav de kovid ma'isa shari. And Beis Hillel says that even if your kli does a ma'isa, it would be permitted. We paskin this way. We paskin leniently, like Beis Hillel. So hashadam is the Beis Shammai. Avagav de loy kovid ma'isa tzosser. So even now we've come up in this analysis that according to Beis Shammai, even if your kli didn't do a ma'isa, it's prohibited. Even Beis Shammai, remember we brought a baraisa that you could put the spices on the coals and it would delast your garments the rest of Shabbos. We said clearly there that there's no ma'isa there, but so what? We just decided that according to Beis Shammai, whether there's a ma'isa or not a ma'isa, it's prohibited. Why did he permit this? So the more answers, because you didn't put it in the kli. You put it on the ground, and the kli didn't do anything, so Beis Shammai would say it's permitted. So gigis v'ner ukdera ushpud my time Beis Shammai. So a candle, for example, you light a candle Erev Shabbos. So it can burn for the rest of Shabbos. You can use it. Why isn't that using a kli according to Beis Shammai, even though it doesn't do a mice? Or let's say you put a pot on the flame from Erev Shabbos, or a spit with meat, and that you put, if you want to roast something from Shabbos. Why does Beis Shammai permit this, that it can continue into Shabbos? The mafker lavkuri. You know why? Because we're talking about a case where we made it hefker. It's only a kli that belongs to a Jew that there's a prohibition of shvisas kelim. If I made it hefker, it doesn't belong to me anymore, so there's no issue regarding shvisas kelim. Now, Mantana Lahadaton Rabban, who is the author of the following brisa? Is Lotamala Isha Kedera, a woman should not fill a pot with asasut v'turmusim. These are vegetables that need a lot of, like turnips, they need a lot of cooking. So a woman cannot fill up a pot, put it into the oven Erev Shabbos, and let it cook into Shabbos. Let's say she did it. Im Nosnan, L'motzei Shabbos Asurim B'chtei Shias, you cannot eat it, Motzei Shabbos, until you wait. We fine you that if it took 2 hours for it to really cook, then you have to wait 2 hours after Motzei Shabbos before you can eat it. You can't benefit from the fact that it cooked on Shabbos. Lo yamale nachdom chavish shel mayim. A baker should not fill up a barrel of water because he wants to heat up water. Same thing. If comes Motzei Shabbos, you can't use it. You got to wait whatever time it took for it to process. So the Gemara is going to say, is this only Beis Shammai below Beis Hillel? Up until now, today, we learned that Beis Hillel allows your kalim to do work for you. Does that include cooking? That means Beis Hillel, is this only Beis Shammai who prohibits, but Beis Hillel would permit? So the Gemara says, Afilu Tema Beis Hillel. Really, Beis Hillel prohibits, but not Me'ikar Adin. Me'ikar Adin, this would be permitted. Beis Hillel prohibits Gzeira Shemayachta B'Gechol. If you stelled something up Erev Shabbos, and it's going to cook into Shabbos, the reason we don't allow it is because we're concerned that on Shabbos, you're going to take a stick and move the coals around to try to heat it up. And then that's cooking. And you violated the malach of cooking on Shabbos. Well, what about the case we learned tonight, where you have coals, you put some spices on the coals, and you put your clothes, you can leave your clothes there all of Shabbos. Why aren't we worried there that he's Shema Yichteb, that he's going to move the coals around the stick? So the Gemara says there also, that's going to create a lot of smoke, and that's going to damage the perfume that this reich is supposed to do. So we're not worried he's going to do it because it defeats the purpose. So we said in the Mishnah, and it seems like Beis Hillel permits it, to put the flax that needed to be dried up in the oven from Erev Shabbos, even though it continues the process on Shabbos. How come there we're not concerned that he's going to move the coals? Awesome, keeping the kashlu zika lo magalale. There,
If a draft,
he's not gonna open it up, the door to the oven, because opening it up is going to damage the wind that's going to blow in, is going to damage it. So there's no reason to be goyzer, he's not going to do it. So tzemer leyora leagues. But then we said in the Mishnah that you could put wool into a cauldron for dyeing as long as you did it Erev Shabbos. And it can continue to do it on Shabbos. How come here, Beis Hillel isn't goizer because maybe you're going to stick the coals? Omer Shmuel B'yoyra Akura. We're talking about a cauldron that's been removed from the fire. So we don't have to worry that he's gonna stick the coals. How come we're not concerned that he's gonna stick a stick into the cauldron itself and turn the wool? And that's gonna really be an act of cooking. That's being the Sayeh L'Bishul. So the Gemara answers Bakura V'tucha. So it's been removed from the fire, so there's no concern about moving the coals, and it's completely sealed. So he can't open it. If he could open it, there would be a gzeira that you can't, stick your stick in and move it around. Okay. Now you're giving me this principle that as long as I put something into the oven, Erev Shabbos, and it's cooking, and it's going to continue to cook into Shabbos, we can't eat even after Shabbos. You have to wait b'chdei shiyasu. We said Beis Hillel doesn't allow it at all because we're concerned you're going to come on Shabbos to move the coals. So it's a gzeira. So if you have a pot with raw meat, shari la'anucha erev Shabbos u'chashecha b'tanur. There's no gzeira at all. If you put raw meat into an oven erev Shabbos, why? It's not going to be ready to eat that night. So he takes his mind off of it. He's not going to come to move the coals around. Rashi. We're going to see. There's a lot of rabbinic pot, and you put it in Erev Shabbos into the oven. You'd be allowed to do it. And it cooks all night. The raw meat, he certainly didn't put it in to eat it tonight. Now, Mishum Lamachar, for tomorrow, he's not going to come to move the coals around, shows Gadol, because there's still going to be a lot of delay. The Lodomila says for Tumusim Shein Kol Alayla Vayom Dailam, that it's enough. That's why we prohibited the turnips, because it's not going to be ready at night, but it might be ready in the daytime. With the raw meat, it's not going to be ready at all. The law Now, what about cooked meat? If the meat was already fully cooked, it's the same as raw meat. Since it's completely cooked, person's not going to. There's no gzeira that he's going to move the coals around. The problem is bashul v'loy bashul. It's partially cooked. Then usher, because then we're concerned he's going to move the coals around. You should have been garmachaya, but if you threw a raw bone in there with the partially cooked meat, you'd be permitted to do it. Because again, the bone's not going to be ready, and you're not going to come to, to move the coals around.
But you're cooking it anyhow.
Say again?
You're cooking it overnight on Shabbos.
Okay, we've been learning all day today that if you start the process, before we talked about bishul, we said as long as you're clean, if you put it, you're not allowed to put something into the oven on Shabbos. Here we talk about you put it in the oven before Shabbos. Now, let's say the cooking process continued into Shabbos. That's why they made a gzeira you may not benefit from it even after Shabbos until Bichdei Shiyasu,
Okay.
until the period of time it takes you to cook that food. Let's say it takes 3 hours. You wouldn't be able to eat it Motzei Shabbos. You certainly can't eat it on Shabbos. You can't eat it even Motzei Shabbos. You have to wait 3 hours.
So in the case of a chon, it has to go into Shabbos already cooked.
The cholent is, that's something else. That's going to be something else. Yeah, exactly. That has to be fully cooked.
Okay.
And that has to do with hatmana,
Keeping
but adding heat. Adding heat. And by the way, all the dinim we learned today regarding bishul is lechatchila only. We're going to see but technically, if you have raw meat or fully cooked meat, the gzera doesn't hold.
Okay.
But remember, if you have an open pot, there's a problem because there's shema. Either you're going to move the coals, or if the pot's open, we make a gzera that you can't. We don't want you to stir it. So you're really not allowed to do it. It's prohibited, but it's prohibited rabbinically, not midoraisa.
Okay.
Hashtu da amar kol mida de kasha le zikalo magalale. So now we said anything that the wind is going to be a problem and a person's not going to open up the pot. High psar de gadya. So goat meat, vishorik, that it's sealed, shapir domi. So that would not be a problem. This would be an exception to the prohibition. Because the person's not going to, first of all, it's sealed anyways. The person's not going to come to open it because it's going to damage it. The barcha v'lo yisorik, a meat from a ram, and the oven is not sealed, osir. Because there you're gonna come to move the coals around. The question is, gadi v'lo yisorik, goat meat that's not sealed, and barcha v'sorik, and the ram meat that is sealed, what's the din? Rav Ashi shori, Rav Ashi permitted, Rav Yomi Medifti osar. So on Rav Ashi you permitted. What about we learn in the Mishnah, Ein solin, botzel, basar, ubeit, so you don't roast onion, meat, or an egg, elakadesh yitzum bad yom. That it's got to be fully cooked prior to Shabbos.
Okay.
So how can you put meat into an oven that's not fully roasted? So that could be with ram meat that you're going to move the coals. But perhaps in the other cases it would be permitted. That's one way to learn. Ikedi amri, the gadi bein sork bein loy sork shapir dami. Goat meat, whether it's covered or not covered, the oven is permitted. And the barchanami v'shak shapir dami. Same thing with meat of a ram, and the oven is closed. It's also permitted. Ki pligi bebarcha v'lo yisrak. The machlokes is ram meat where the oven is open. There, Rav Ashi permitted, and Rav Yirmiyah prohibited. Now, the kasha on Rav Ashi permits. What about the price we said that you can't roast either meat or onions or eggs Erev Shabbos until it's completely cooked? Because the more answers, bibisra gumri. That's meat that's cooked directly on the coals. There, we're concerned more that you might move the coals around. That's why over there the Brisa says you can't do it. But if it's in a tanur, says Rav Ashi, it's not a problem. On Ravina, haikra chaya, raw pumpkin, shapir dami, even the kashle zika, there, you're not going to come to open the pot because the wind is bad for it. It's like bisra de gadya, it's like goat meat, which we were more lenient for, because a person's not going to open up the pot to stir it, either by pumpkin or by goat meat. So the halacha is meat is prohibited to leave on coals Erev Shabbos unless it's completely done. It's got to be cooked at least k'Michael ben Drusoy. Michael ben Drusoy were like what the robbers who eat on the run. So it's like 2/3 cooked. That's the din of our chulent. So if our cholent is cooked, K'Michael ben Drustoy, the Erev Shabbos, it's permitted to keep it going into Shabbos. Now, Beis Shammai oimrim, ein moichrim. Beis Shammai, Ton Rabban Beis Shammai oimrim, lo yimkor odem chetzel nachri. Person shouldn't sell something to a goy or loan him something. Lo yashilenu, lo yalbenu, lo yitela b'matona. Ela kedei she'yagila beiso. You can't do it 5 minutes before Shabbos because you're gonna the goy. It takes some time to get to his home. Beis Hillel omrim kedei she'yagila b'aisa samach l'chomra. Beis Hillel says you can give it to him as long as his house is close by. Explains Rabbi Kiva, kedei she'yetze b'pesach beiso. As long as you have enough time before Shabbos that he can leave your house, you fulfilled your din. You don't have a requirement that the goy has to make it to his house. He's allowed to travel on Shabbos. Amrav Yosef Rabbi Yehuda, Heinen div Rabbi Kiva, Heinen div Rabbi Hillel. That means Rabbi Kiva is really explaining the sheet of Beis Hillel. Lo bar Rabbi Kiva lefarish div Rabbi Hillel regarding what does it mean samach l'chom. It means you have, as long as you give it to a goyish postman. Well, forget about the mail. It's a different din. But you can give a goy something before Shabbos as long as he can make it out of your house. Ton Rabbanon, Beis Shammai oimri, lo yimkor odem chametz lo nachri, ela im ken yodea bo sheyichle kodem hapesach divrei Beis Shammai. This is very apropos now. Person shouldn't sell his chametz to a nachri unless you're sure that the nachri is going to finish all the chametz before Pesach. As long as you're permitted to eat the chametz, you're allowed to sell it. What does that mean? Let's say till 10 o'clock in the morning, Erev Pesach, we have a permission to eat chametz. At 9:59, a minute before, you can still sell your chametz, even though you've got a warehouse full of chametz. This din of Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel does not agree with. As long as you get rid of the chametz from your possession a minute before it's prohibited for you to have it, you've done what you're supposed to. It's not in your possession anymore, even though the chametz is still be'en. Okay. We'll stop here.
All right. Tomorrow, next same time.
Same time,
Tomorrow,
same
same
thing.
time,
Oh,
same time.
tomorrow is Survim Rabbanan at 8 o'clock,
Right.
and then the Daf Yomi at 9 o'clock.
Okay.
Okay, Shkoyach.
Okay,
Okay, good
Mario,
night.
will you come send out the Survim Rabbanan send out the same code, right?